There are countless urban legends and stories that have been passed down through generations, but few are as eerie and spine-chilling as the tale of the haunted train. These haunted railway stories often blur the lines between reality and the supernatural, drawing from real experiences and terrifying accounts. One such story centers around a train that is said to carry more than just passengers. It is haunted by spirits of the past, seeking vengeance, closure, or perhaps something more sinister. The story begins in a remote town, tucked away from the bustling cities and the world's noise. It was a place where life was slow, with quiet streets and a railway station that had seen better days. The train that passed through was an old, creaky relic, often forgotten by those who had long stopped taking the route. However, those who still rode it spoke in hushed tones of a strange phenomenon, a ghostly presence that haunted the midnight train. It wasn't just the eerie feeling that something was off. The passengers who rode the train late at night swore they saw glimpses of shadowy figures lurking in the windows, heard unsettling whispers in the empty carriages, and felt an overwhelming chill in the air, even on the warmest nights. The first reports of the haunted train surfaced when a young conductor named Daniel was assigned to work the midnight shift. Daniel was eager, but his enthusiasm quickly faded as he heard rumors from the other workers. They spoke of strange noises, unexplained disturbances, and, most disturbingly, the passengers who would get on the train but never disembark. It was a mysterious thing. The train would arrive at its destination with an empty coach, save for one or two passengers, but when the conductor went to check the rest of the cars, he'd find no one. The seats were cold, and the air was thick with an unnatural stillness. But Daniel didn't believe in such superstitions. To him, it was just another late-night train ride. He put the eerie stories out of his mind and made his way to the train station that evening. As he boarded the train, he noticed something odd. The carriages were empty, as usual, but there was something about the silence that felt off. It wasn't peaceful, it was oppressive. The train's engine chugged slowly, the rhythmic sound of the tracks beneath them almost comforting, until it wasn't. As the train sped into the dark countryside, Daniel felt the first signs of unease. The temperature inside the train dropped noticeably, and he wrapped his jacket tighter around himself. The train's overhead lights flickered in a manner that couldn't be explained by faulty wiring. And then, in the reflection of the window, he saw it, a figure standing at the end of the carriage. At first, he thought it was another passenger, but the figure was too still, too rigid. It wasn't a living being. It was a ghost, its features pale and indistinct, but there was no mistaking the aura of death that surrounded it. As the night wore on, more unsettling occurrences followed. The train seemed to take longer than usual to reach its destination. Each time Daniel checked the time, the clock seemed to be running slower. The eerie presence in the train grew stronger, and soon, the whispers began. They were soft at first, like a distant hum, but they grew louder, clearer, until Daniel could make out words. "Help us, get off, turn back." The voices came from all directions, from the shadows and from the walls themselves. There was no place to escape. The most terrifying moment came when the train entered a dark tunnel. The lights flickered one last time before going completely out. For what felt like an eternity, Daniel was left in pitch-black darkness, unable to see a thing. He reached for his flashlight but found it cold to the touch, dead. He could hear the sounds of movement, the rustling of clothes, the faint shuffle of feet, but when he shined the light, the carriage remained empty. When the train finally emerged from the tunnel, Daniel found himself in a different place altogether. The station was unfamiliar, the platforms deserted, and the sky was an unnatural shade of gray. He went to check the train schedule, but there was none. No ticket booth, no station personnel, just silence. Panic set in, and Daniel rushed to the rear of the train to find it empty. The cars were now completely still. The only sounds were the creaking of the train's frame and the whispers that seemed to grow louder the further he walked. The train hadn't stopped, but it wasn't in the world he knew anymore. It was trapped in another dimension, a purgatory for souls lost to the earth. And as he looked around, Daniel realized that some of the passengers who never left weren't just ghosts, they were victims of the train's dark past. Some had died in accidents on the tracks, others were lost travelers who had never been seen again. Now, they were forever part of the haunted train, repeating their final moments for eternity. The final twist of the story occurred when Daniel tried to leave the train. The doors were locked. The station he had arrived at was no longer a real place, and he realized with horror that he had joined the ranks of the lost souls, those who had become part of the haunted train's curse. He would ride this spectral locomotive for eternity, trapped between life and death. The story of the haunted train continues to be passed down, and some say that even today, if you take the midnight train, you might find yourself sharing the ride with more than just the living. Some travelers have vanished, never to be seen again, leaving behind only whispers of their final journey.